Is your wife withholding sex? Today, we are getting into it. And before we start, I just want to say thank you all for the likes, the subscriptions, and the support here on my channel. This is a free channel, but the content is not free. So all of your support and your love here is definitely appreciated. So hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it. Before I start with this topic, I wanted to bring up a viral video that has been all over the internet of recent. And it kind of shows what women say out loud if they would be honest by withholding sex in the relationship. Let's take a listen.
Marriages, you would hear shit like, hey, I know that sex and intimacy is a big deal for you and that we've always used it as a way to stay connected, show love and affection, but I don't want it anymore. And I really cannot be bothered. It's not medical or anything. I just don't want to. I don't want to touch you anymore. And I don't want you to touch me. No more sex. But I don't want you to go outside and get it either. We're not opening the marriage because, well, then you'll meet somebody who's not going to give up on you and you're going to want that. And you're going to see that I soft quit the marriage and then you're going to want to leave. And then I'm going to lose all my comfort. And I'm okay with you losing your comfort, but I don't want to lose any of mine. So we're not going to have sex within the relationship and you're definitely not going outside of the relationship because then you're going to know that you deserve better. So no, I'm actually just going to breadcrumb you along with false hope and then shame you with embarrassment into submission until you just stop talking about it. And by the time your mental health, deteriorates into depression and that, you're not going to want to do anything either. And after more years, you'll have invested so much of your life and time and efforts. You're not going to go anywhere anyway.
Wow. So did this hit home? If you're listening to this, I want you to listen closely to the part where she says, I don't want to open up the relationship. I don't want him going anywhere else. I just don't want to give him sex. Because if I were to open up the relationship, he would realize that I'm soft quitting on the marriage and realize what he's missing. This is a key point in the video because what she was doing was expressing what women would be saying if they were honest to their husbands, saying the quiet part out loud. And it's important to understand that while the internet sees it as these women are selfish, which they are, we are not talking about how they are actually punishing themselves. Yes, you heard it right. I said it. Women who withhold sex from their husbands punish themselves. And we're going to be getting into why that's the facts, okay? When a woman says I do in a marriage, she takes the vow for a lifelong commitment of sex. Yes. And for the women that are going to say, well, marriage isn't all about sex. What separates a platonic relationship versus a marriage? There's only one thing, sex. Yeah. That means when you say I do, you commit to a lifelong commitment of sex. When a woman breaks her vow, she fractures her integrity. So you might be saying, well, what does that mean? Okay, well, when you fracture your integrity, it means that everything that you say going forward can no longer be taken seriously. You're not a person who practices what they preach. And that's why a lot of these women have difficulty, not just in their marriages, which ultimately end, but in every single relationship after, they struggle. Yes, they struggle in the relationships, they struggle with their kids, they struggle at their jobs, they struggle at anything that requires commitment. So when you commit to something and then you don't keep your word, you have nothing. And that's why a woman who withholds sex in her relationship actually hurts herself because she fractures her integrity. And so ultimately she'll end that relationship and every single relationship coming afterward is going to be damaged. So every adult has responsibilities. Every single adult living has responsibilities. And what is so damaging about feminism is that it tells women that they are strong and independent, right? The message is they're strong and independent. But then as soon as they get married, they suddenly want to outsource adulthood. They do not want to uphold the responsibilities that come with being an adult. And what a lot of women don't understand is that marriage doesn't mean less responsibilities. It actually means more responsibilities. That is why they struggle a few years in their marriage, is because they have very unrealistic expectations of what they think marriage is. They believe that they can outsource their adulthood to their husband and not have to handle as many responsibilities that they used to on their own. And that is actually false. The truth is that when you're on your own, you have responsibilities and obligations to yourself, right? As a woman, you have obligations and responsibilities to yourself. So when you get married, now you don't just need to take care of yourself. You also need to take care of your husband. And so there is actually more responsibility associated with it. And that's why a lot of women over the course of a few years into the marriage start saying they're bored or they're unhappy or they want to walk away from the marriage. It's because they had unrealistic expectations about what marriage is. They didn't make a commitment to be a wife, right? They didn't make an intentional choice to be a wife. What they wanted was a husband. And you'll hear this in modern women today when you talk to them and have conversations, and men take note of this. If you're talking to a woman and she says, well, I'm looking for a man who wants to be a husband, but she doesn't say, I want to be a wife and I want to take care of my husband. Those are completely two separate, different mindsets. The mindset of a woman who is looking for a husband and wants a man who wants to be a husband is a woman who doesn't want the obligations of being a wife. So take note of this and really listen, because women do kind of tell on themselves, right? They kind of self-report. It's the things that they don't say out loud that usually ends up being the whole truth. Women understand very well to use their sexuality in the beginning, in the dating phase, which is why most men are like, wow, this is great. I want to have this for the rest of my life. I want to marry you, right? And then they slowly start putting restrictions and limitations on him. Why do modern women today give unlimited access to men who don't want marriage and don't want a commitment, and then turn right back around and put limitations and restrictions on the man who wants a commitment? Well, it's very, very simple. It's women today don't want to take the obligations and responsibilities that come with being a wife. You see, the man who doesn't want to commit isn't going to place accountability, obligations, and responsibilities. He's simply looking for fun. That's all he's looking for. And when a woman meets a man and she hears, well, I just want to travel and there's no commitment there, it's just, we're just having fun, right? You hear these kind of things. What that does is it tells her that she doesn't have any accountability. It gives her the feeling like she doesn't have any accountability, right? Because think about it, what gives a woman accountability? Responsibilities. So if you're not going to give her responsibilities and hold her to those responsibilities, how is she ever going to be accountable? So this goes into why women do this today. They're wanting to bypass the responsibilities and obligations that come with a wife. So they feel that if they place restrictions and limitations on the man who wants to marry them, they can kick the can down the road or not have as many responsibilities or obligations as a wife, right? They don't have to do as much, because we have a society that tells women that there are no consequences for their actions. And then we give them fail-safes to bypass the consequences, right? Think about all the fail-safes that are around, right? Abortion, no-fault divorce, birth control, career over marriage, fertility specialist. There are so many different ways that we give women the message in society that there are no actual consequences for their actions. And that's a lie. That's a huge lie, because in actuality, they do have consequences. They just don't choose them. And we're seeing this when women are getting married much later, having difficulty having a family, maybe not having kids at all, maybe having difficulty finding a man who wants to commit to them. These are all consequences for trying to bypass the accountability, the responsibility, and the obligations of being a wife early on. So if you have come into contact with women who give full access to the guy who doesn't want to commit, but then turns around and gives limitations to the guy that wants to commit, I need you to understand that this is why it's happening. It's women that don't want accountability. They have high expectations for the man to always provide and the man to give those responsibilities, but in turn, they don't want to do the same. So again, it's an integrity issue. It's a matter of not keeping your word, not being able to actually practice what you preach. Being a wife really requires effort, okay? And I'm telling you this as a wife. It requires maintaining the attraction. It requires keeping sex alive in the relationship. Yes, you heard that right. You know, it's not a man's job to turn you on. It's not a man's job to get you in the mood. It is absolutely 100% our responsibility in the marriage as wives to be adults and tell our husbands what we love in the bedroom, what excites us. And when we do this, this is the true strength. This is truly empowering when we can open up with what we love sexually with our husbands and actually make it happen and take the initiative. You know, I'll see this a lot. Women who don't think it's their responsibility and they think that it's a man's job to turn her on. They'll use the "I'm not in the mood" a lot. Usually they'll end up with men who are always the initiators in the marriage, okay? And in the beginning, he might be always the one reaching for her, always trying to turn her on, always trying to do these little things, you know, to get her in the mood. And what happens over time is he starts to really feel rejected. When every single time he's reaching for her, he's not feeling any initiation back, right? So he will start to purposefully no longer initiate. And many men will do this because they think that they're testing their wives, right? They'll go, well, I'm going to see if she notices I'm not taking attention to her. I'm going to just stop grabbing for her. I'm going to stop having sex altogether, right? They think that's the test to get a reaction from her. And this is like one of the worst things you can do in your relationship. And I'll tell you why. Because when a man actually is the only initiator in the marriage and decides, well, I'm just not going to initiate anymore, right? What he actually does is give her what she wants. Yes, you heard that right. He actually gives her what she wants. Think about it. He's still providing. He's still answering her messages. He's still kissing her goodbye. The kids still are taken care of. The roof is still over her head. All the comforts are still there, minus the one thing that she didn't want to give him anyways, which is sex. So when a man disengages to get a response from his wife, what that actually is indifference. It's the white flag. It's a surrender. It's him saying, I'm going to drown myself, stay silent, and hope she comes and saves me. You never ever want to give a woman that much power in the relationship. You never want to move daily so to get a reaction from someone. It'd be very, very different if you decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to walk out of this marriage because I feel disrespected. I know my worth, and I'm going to go where I feel respected. That's a very different scenario. Then you're moving accordance to what you need long term. Okay, that's a completely different thing. It's a action done regardless of how she reacts, right? But I'm talking about the kind of reaction that's dependent upon her. When you move according to how you're hoping she will react, you're basically pedestalizing a woman. It's no different than anything else that puts women up on this pedestal and gives them an entitled mindset. So you don't want to move according to her. You don't want to worry about how she's going to react, right? You don't want to go get a job or go to the gym or even, disengage just simply to get a reaction from her. It should always be, hey, how is this going to benefit the unit, the family, everybody involved long term? That's really how you want to move. So why do women withhold sex? Well, the short answer is because they can. They can because many men will tolerate it. And like I said before, if you are handling her withholding in a way that tolerates it and puts up with it and creates indifference and a surrender, then there's no reason for her to change because she's actually getting rewarded for bad behavior. The better idea would be to get into shape for yourself, find out some of the things that maybe you stopped doing early on that you feel that you have put on the back burner. It could be a hobby, it could be a new job or new opportunities, it could be hanging out with a new community of like-minded individuals to really help you redirect and refocus your energy to something that's positive. You don't want to sit in a position where you feel like one person has that much control over you or that much power over you, that you have to move on eggshells and worry about her reaction to you, right? You have to move accordance to how you're going to move for the future and then call out her bad behavior and do it immediately, right? So a lot of times I will talk to husbands and they will tell me, well, you know, she did something, I had to think about it, I told her 2 or 3 days later. By then it's too late. You have to address the problem immediately. And I say this because some of the most healthiest marriages set those boundaries up really early on, right? They set up these boundaries from the very beginning, even before they got married. They made sure that this is what I will tolerate, this is what I will not tolerate. And if any of these things are broken, we're not going to be going forward like this, okay? So I think that it's very important to address bad behavior immediately. Don't let a few days go by. Address it. And if she wants to not come along with you, right? If she wants to throw a tantrum, if she wants to get upset about it, that's on her. Again, she is the one who punishes herself because there are consequences for these actions. There's always consequences for our actions. So you don't ignore it. You don't wait days to address it. You handle it right then and there, and then you set up what you will and will not do going forward. I know many men will feel invisible in their own marriages. You know, they'll be going through the motions of providing, taking care of the kids, handling responsibilities, and completely feel ignored. So that's why I say do not react off of her. You have to start moving off of what is best for everybody involved. And then be ready to walk away from the marriage, because ultimately you have to be honest. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with what's going on. Many women, even sometimes the men who, you know, start getting into the gym, start improving themselves, many women don't want to come along. They don't want to adjust and change. They have gone into a habit and they don't understand what the consequences are of this, right? Sometimes women have to go through it to really get it. But there are instances where she does take notice and she does start to say, wow, you know what? I want this to work and change. Most women who do not want a marriage to end are not going to withhold. They're not. And this is not about duty sex. I want to make this clear. We're not talking about duty sex. We're talking about women who enthusiastically want to have sex. Many, many women want to enthusiastically enjoy sex with their husbands, but they might come, you know, with some sort of excuse like hormones. Okay. I hear this a lot. Oh, my hormones are, you know, not balanced and there's something wrong with me. I need to go check my blood. You know, I'll hear this. Well, that's still not an excuse not to have sex.
Want to take a little break for our sponsors? Merrick Health has been a huge help in my hormone balance. They have made the step painless, super, super simple and easy and affordable. I have started with Merrick Health in the past 2 years. They get the blood work done. They meet with you virtually, so you don't need to go anywhere, and your medications come straight to your doorstep. So for the ladies that truly want to get their libido going and want to be all over their husbands and just completely night and day difference in your sleep and your training, everything, this is where you want to go. Merrick Health is definitely the best place. Make sure you head on over. I've put all of their links down below. Just tap on it. You can go check them out on Instagram, get all the information that you need, even your questions answered for free, and make sure you let them know Gia sent you.
Go get your hormones checked, 100%. But point blank, using that as an excuse as to why sex isn't happening is an excuse. That's exactly what it is. And then I'll hear something like, well, I'm too tired. Well, if you're too tired, you probably don't have enough structure in the home, okay? You're not setting up a routine that allows you to get your rest, that allows you to get in your workouts, because we all know getting in enough workouts along with adding muscle to your frame is going to give you more energy. Eating properly is going to give you more energy. Sleeping properly at night is going to give you more energy. All these things, right? And then also putting aside a day that is prioritized just for your husband. And it can be something as getting dressed up. You know, a man wants to see what he married when he married you. He wants to see you dressed the way he married you. Many women get comfortable in their marriage and they want to never do their hair and makeup. They never want to put on anything cute. You know, these are things that it is a woman's responsibility. It's not his responsibility. You know, marriage doesn't maintain itself. Attraction doesn't maintain itself. A great marriage doesn't just happen. You know, these are things that are created over time and through effort and work. And women truly are the gatekeepers of keeping sex alive in a marriage. And they do this by changing their mindset and realizing that it's not their husband's obligation, it is their obligation. And in turn, they get a huge reward from it. You know, it's enjoyable, and you start to get closer to your husband and have a better connection to him. And actually, you'll find out that the marriage can be a lot better in time once you have that mindset shift. That's why modern feminism is so dangerous, because they have the modern day tropes, right? Of like, I'm a victim. It's not my problem. It's his. Men are the ones that the problem. Or you'll see my body, my choice. So they always want, it's conflicting. The messages they give are conflicting. One minute they're telling you you're strong and independent. And the next minute they're telling you that it's everybody else's fault. It's his fault. It's your husband's fault. You have nothing to do with it. You can't have it best of both worlds, ladies. It either is or it isn't. If you want to say that you're strong and independent, then that's going to come from being an adult and not outsourcing adulthood. It means actually taking the initiative, learning what you like sexually, having full agency when it comes to your sexuality. You were very good at it when you were dating him, so you definitely can be good at it again. It's realizing it's not his job. It is my job. I'm an adult. I know what I like. I have to start making it happen. And when you say something like my body, my choice in a marriage, understand that that's anti-marriage, because marriage was a vow to give your body to your husband, and in turn, he gives his body to you. So if you're going to say it's my body and I only need to give sex when I'm in the mood, what you're actually saying is that you don't want to be married. I know as women, we tend to do a million different things, right? We have our hands sometimes in 10 different things at once. And if we don't create a tunnel vision, a mindset where this is what I'm going to do right now, and this is what I'm going to focus on right now, everything else will distract us. So create better structure, ladies. You know, get into the gym, plan, know what you're going to do, set aside time every single day that's just for your husband. This is really going to help you. So create the plan so that you don't lose the attraction long term, and stop making excuses, right? Because when you make excuses, you are kicking the can down the road. You are just prolonging a situation that you need to face head on, and you're avoiding accountability and responsibility. So just rip it off like the Band-Aid, handle it, be an adult like you say that you are, that you're strong, and handle it. And that goes for realizing that, no, you know what? I'm not going to point the finger. I'm not going to blame. I'm not going to hover. I'm not going to be needy, because this happens with men and women, not just women, right? I'll see men do this. They become very needy in their marriage, or they hover and they expect things to change overnight. No, that's not going to help. You are still trying to wait for the reaction of another person before you move. You never want to base your decisions on another person. When you place your decisions and your actions on another person, you don't have your own self-worth. People who have self-respect and self-control and know their worth don't move based off of other people. They move off principle, okay? They make an intentional choice. I made an intentional choice to be a wife, right? When you make that choice, when you say that, what you do is you now can move in accordance to the responsibilities and the obligations of being a wife. You're not pointing the finger, worrying about what somebody else is doing, waiting for them to make the change first. No, none of that's going to help you. None of that's going to give you the kind of self-respect and self-control needed to really take the control of your marriage and have things more fulfilling as time goes by, right? That takes controlling what's within your control. Now, when you withhold sex, ladies, from a marriage, you ultimately cheat yourself out of one of the best relationships that you can have long term, because you don't just hurt him, you hurt yourself, because that's how you bond and that's what makes the marriage. Yes, fix the sex and the marriage suddenly becomes much, much better. It's that simple. When I think about at least some of the ladies that I've spoken to over the years, some of the things that were a common denominator and they all struggled with, not just the sex in the marriage, was losing what they would call their passions in life, okay? No longer taking time out for themselves. And I want to talk about this because when you lose touch with your own sexuality, knowing what you like, okay, you slowly start to lose interest in a lot of things. And maybe when you were dating, you had certain passions that you love to do. I don't know, whatever it is, roller skating, arts, music, whatever it was, you had certain passions that a lot of times over the years when you have kids and you get busy with a lot more responsibilities, because that's what happens in marriage, you tend to kind of push those aside because those are the things that take the back seat. So ask yourself that. Am I losing what I used to love to do that made me come alive? Because this is important. If you are pushing some of the things that made you happy, that gave you joy, and you're putting them to the side and you're always kind of becoming a caregiver, this is going to completely kill the desire in the relationship. You have to be able to structure the routine so that you have time for your husband, but you also have time to understand your own sexuality and what makes you come alive and what makes you enjoy life. And you have to start prioritizing that, because until you do that, the intimacy in the marriage usually will continue to die, along with you putting everything that made you enjoy life to the wayside. And then the next thing is, are you taking care of your health? Are you going to the gym? Do you like what you see in the mirror? Because this is a really big thing, ladies. If you don't like what you see in the mirror, more than likely, you are also not going to enjoy sex. He could do all the right things. He could know exactly what you like. But if you are insecure about your body and you don't like what you see in the mirror, and right? We all know, us ladies are more critical on ourselves than anything else. We all know what we'd like to change. If you can't do that and you're not actually putting the effort to do that, then it's going to show up in the bedroom. That confidence, that sexuality that you have is going to show up in a lackluster bedroom. So take care of your health. Do the things that make you feel alive. Structure your time and your routine so that you have time to prioritize yourself, because until you prioritize your own self-care and self-respect and self-worth, you're not going to be able to give that back to anybody else. And I say that with great love, because that's one of the things that this whole entire episode is on. When you take away sex in a marriage, you are basically telling your husband that you don't have self-respect, that you don't have self-worth, and so you can't give it back to your husband. And that will slowly decay the marriage over time. The next thing you want to do is you want to ask if the decisions that you're making on a day-to-day basis benefit your marriage, or are they just benefiting yourself? And this is a big question that you have to ask yourself, because if you are making decisions on a daily basis that always are putting your marriage on the back burner or as the second or third priority, then ultimately it would be for nothing that you made these changes, because then you will end up, your marriage will still suffer. And I'll give you an example of this. Like, let's say you started something that you've always loved to do. Let's say you were an avid runner and you used to do a lot of activities like marathons, and you got back into it, but you were never home on time. The dinner was never taken care of. Your husband was always wondering where you were. You weren't picking up the phone. You were distracted. Guess what's going to happen? It doesn't matter how great your body is. It doesn't matter how high your sex drive is. If your husband feels like he's not being prioritized, ultimately it would have been for nothing. So ask yourself, are the decisions I'm making on a day-to-day basis benefiting the marriage as a whole? Are you making decisions not just for yourself, selfishly? Are you making decisions for me and my husband and my family? So do what's within your control. That's all you can do. You can't control outside issues. You can control what's within your control. If you are the kind of woman who is going to tell your husband, hey, you know what? This is what I love to do. And not just talk about it, but actually do it, right? Initiate it. Have him come home and you surprise him in actually doing it. I can promise you 100% he is going to bend over backwards to make that happen. Without a doubt, I can tell you he's going to really want to have those fantasies that you have come alive. It's about being open, about being honest, saying the quiet part out loud, and then moving forward and making the routines and the structure to make it happen. Now, to kind of sum this up, this video, your word matters. Your integrity matters in a marriage. When you say I do, you commit to taking on these responsibilities and obligations. And no one, not your husband, no one can remove them from you. No matter how much you try to kick the can down the road or avoid them or blame someone else, in the end, those consequences are coming. And you can choose them. You can choose those consequences if you are willing to take the responsibility and start now. It's not about what happened in the past. It's about what you're doing going forward. Choose, make an intentional choice to be a wife and take on those obligations and responsibilities. And you're going to find that the consequences that come from that are things that you chose. So yes, will it be difficult? Yes, change is always difficult. Okay, and I'll give you an example. Like if you start a new gym routine, or you decide you start a new job, or you're going to an event with, people that you don't really want to be around, but you know that you have to be there because it'll help your future. Initially, those changes are going to be uncomfortable. Initially, you'll probably struggle to do them. But over time, you'll be happy that you did them because emotions are never constant. So I don't want you to go off of what you're feeling. I want you to go off of what you said you were going to do. And when you say I do, you commit to a lifelong commitment of great sex with your husband. So that means continue with the work ethic that it takes to make that happen. That means finding out what you love sexually, taking full ownership of your sexuality, sharing that with your husband, and then doing little things on a daily basis to make sure that those can continue and get better over time. Some questions to ask yourself is, did you stop prioritizing health? Did you stop prioritizing some of the things that you loved? Did you lose confidence somewhere along the way? Because if you did, that's going to affect your own self-control and self-respect. And in turn, it's going to hurt your husband. Real empowerment, the kind of stuff that really is empowering and powerful, is what I'm going over today. It's recognizing that you can't blame, you can't complain. You can't point fingers and make it about somebody else's problem. You can't just stop doing a responsibility or an obligation once you've committed without there being consequences to it. So when you take that extreme ownership and you go, okay, this is what I want to do, you will find your way back to yourself, and in turn, the relationship will get really, really good. Most people would really give anything to have a husband who would care for them, love them, want to be committed to them, bend over backwards to make their sexual fantasies come true. So really, you have to be thankful and grateful that you have that and do everything to protect it. Not worry about, oh, this is making me feel uncomfortable, or, oh, I'm not in the mood today. So no, none of that matters. All that's emotion. The path to a happy marriage and true fulfillment is through responsibility. And I want to say that again. The path to true happiness in a marriage is owning the responsibility of being a wife and taking on the obligations that it involves, that is when you will really have a fulfilling marriage. If you look at what feminism preaches and then the product of it, what happens afterward, it's a kind of a very vicious cycle. It's a loop. It's a loop where you trade responsibility and commitment for cheap, easy validation. And you don't actually avoid the responsibility, it just comes later. So that's why really avoid the messaging of my body, my choice, or, it's all his fault, or it's all his job, or I'm not in the mood. Avoid these kind of sayings, these tropes. And when you hear them, remove yourself from them and understand that no, marriage is actually, my body is my husband's and his body is mine. And I want to be a wife and I want to accept the obligations that are in my marriage so that I can have a fulfilling life with my husband. When you say this and you actually practice it, this is when you'll notice, wow, it's a lot of clarity. You'll start seeing things for what it is. You'll start realizing that we've been fed a lot of lies in society and none of that actually is making women happy. So I hope this video really helped you all, and I hope that there was some insight here that you could take with you. If you're a husband, please bring your wife and let her hear this. And if you're a wife, understand that you are really trying because you're here watching this. I know that you want your marriage to work. It just comes down to making those intentional choices and being grateful for having the opportunity to do this with your husband. Because it really is a gift to know ourselves and to take that responsibility and make it happen, because it's all in our hands. Really it is. So thanks guys again. I appreciate you watching, and till next time, don't forget to leave me your feedback if you want to hear a specific topic. See you guys soon.